guys, like I always say, Namaskara everyone. Andariki Namaskaram, Ellarku Swagatam, and a very warm Vanakkam to Rank Plus J English channel. This is me, your educator, chemistry educator, Navumita Bhattacharjee, and today we are here to talk about all the exceptions of inorganic chemistry. This is a Sunday, so what you need to do is you should make a note out of it so that you remember before your right before your exam, you don't have to go through all the exceptions once again. So please make a note out of it. Also, I will be giving you the PDF, no doubt about it. However, it is necessary and it will be beneficial for you if you make your own note for this particular thing, because it's not very easy to remember all the exceptions, right? So I'm going to make it easier for you. I'll try my best, level best, to make it easier for you. Also, since all the exceptions will be there in one PDF, I think it'll be easier for you to revise through it as well. Okay. So without much further ado, let us start with our exceptions. Now, to start with, let us start with the coordination compound, the coordination chemistry and its exceptions. So you will notice that if you have cobalt in +3 oxidation state, okay, if cobalt is in +3 oxidation state and it is bonded with an oxygen donor atom, okay, for example, if you have water or if you have oxalato, then even though you all know that water is a weak field ligand, yes, then what will happen? This ligand, it will start acting like a strong field ligand. This is an exception and you need to remember it. Moving ahead, everybody, number 2 is if copper is in +2 oxidation state and if it is bonded with water, then what will happen? In this case also, you will find that water is acting like a strong filled ligand. Okay. Let's move to nickel. Nickel in its +4 oxidation state, if it is bonded with a fluoride ion, okay, then what will happen? The ligand will act like a strong field ligand. We all know that the anionic ligands such as fluorine, bromine, chlorine, iodine, all of these are what? These are weak field ligand. In the spectrochemical series, you will find them in the left hand side. Yes, whereas carbon monoxide, CN, the carbon donor atoms, they are usually the strong field ligand. However, in this case, if nickel is in +4 oxidation state, and if it is bonded to a fluoride ion, then it is going to act like a strong field ligand. Okay. Moving ahead, if you have iron in +2 oxidation state and manganese in its +2 oxidation state, and if it is bonded with NH3, in this case, the ligand will act like a weak field ligand. Okay. Then the ligand will act like a weak field ligand. All right, everybody, getting it, guys? Understanding? Okay. Next, 3D series elements in their +2 oxidation state, they try and always form an outer orbital complex up to NH3 in spectrochemical series. Okay. What are we saying? We are saying that the 3D elements, okay, which are the 3D elements? You have scandium, titanium, vanadium, chromium, manganese, iron, cobalt, nickel, copper, and zinc. These 10 elements, they are called as your 3D series. So if the 3D series, if you find the 3D series elements, if they are in +2 oxidation state, then they are going to form what? Outer orbital complex till NH3. Okay, NH3 is what? NH3 in the spectrochemical series. That means NH3 is a ligand. So in the spectrochemical series of the ligands, till NH3, you will find that they are all forming outer orbital complex. That means till NH3, you are going to consider them to be as weak field ligand. After that, they are going to form inner orbital complex. That means pairing up of electrons will start to occur. All right. Okay. Moving ahead then. Okay. Now, guys, what to say, we will come to our P block elements, because in P block you do have a lot of exceptions, right? In P block you do have a lot of exceptions. So let's quickly talk about this. Let us talk about the trends and the exceptions of boron family. Here you will find that the first exception starts from atomic radii. Yes, in the atomic radii, you don't see that after boron you have gallium. After boron, you do not have aluminium. Although, if you look at the periodic table, you will find that after boron, you have aluminium. However, although usually we know that atomic radius increases when you move from top to bottom, right here you see an exception between gallium and aluminium. Why so? Introduction of the D block elements. Yes, exactly. Then is your indium and thallium. There is no other exception. That is fine. Okay. Then when we come to ionization energy, we see that boron has a very high ionization energy. After that, you have thallium. After that, you have gallium. After that, you have aluminium, and then you have indium. Okay. Then we come to electronegativity. In electronegativity, you see that boron, then thallium, then indium, then gallium, and then it is aluminium. Okay. Now let's talk about the oxidation state. In case of oxidation state, we know that general oxidation state of this group. Why? Because these are the group 13 elements. So in general, their oxidation state is +1 as well as +3. However, if you go down the group, you find out that the stability of the +1 oxidation state, it increases down the group. Why so? Once again, because of inert pair effect. And why does the inert pair effect arise? The inert pair effect, it comes into the picture because of the s orbital. Yes, s orbital, it tries to become inert. Why? You have introduced d block, you have introduced f block elements. So that means with these elements, the d orbitals and the f orbitals also got introduced, and we know that the d orbitals and the f orbitals, they are really poor screening effect. They're the worst type of shielders that is possible, and that is why suddenly, because the s orbital, which is a spherical in shape, which is spherical in shape, the electrons, they experience force, they experience the nuclear charge, yes, from all the direction, which is why they suddenly become inert. That means they are not really available for participation. So that is why you see that the +1 oxidation state becomes more and more stable. Okay, then when we go to metallic character, yes, the metallic character, it increases down the group. Melting point, it decreases up to gallium, and then it goes on and increases. Okay, boiling point, it decreases down the group, and density, it increases down the group. Why? Metallic character is increasing, and we know usually metals are known to have a higher density than the non-metals, right? Okay. Next, guys, let us take a look at the reactivity with air. Okay, so when it reacts with air, what does it do? It forms oxide at moderate temperature, but it in higher temperature, it can form nitride. Okay, if you look at crystalline boron, then crystalline boron is unreactive, but boron also has an amorphous form. Sorry. So the amorphous boron that reacts, and talking about aluminium, aluminium here, it forms an oxide layer. That means it forms a passive layer, and that passive layer does not it does not allow it to react anymore. So does not allow it to react further. Gotcha? Clear? All right. Reactivity with acids and alkali, boron does not react. Boron is a typical non-metal. Yes, it does not react with acids or alkalis. Aluminium, however, you know that it has amphoteric in nature, so it does react with both acids and alkalis to liberate hydrogen gas. And aluminium, it is passive with concentrated nitric acid, right? What does aluminium do? Aluminium again forms a passive oxide layer, so it becomes passive with concentrated nitric acid. That is what you will see. Let's move towards reactivity with halogen. When these family, that is boron, aluminium, gallium, indium, thallium, when they react with halogen, what do they form? They form trihalides. Why so? Like you know that the general oxidation state is +3, so they form trihalides. However, thallium does not form. Thallium cannot form. Please make a note of this. Thallium cannot form a triiodide. Okay. Yes, thallium cannot form triiodide. Otherwise, everything else they can form it. Okay. Next, guys, let us talk about the nature of trioxides here. The nature of trioxides, you will notice that for boron, yes, it will be acidic in nature. For aluminium and gallium, it is going to be amphoteric in nature. And for indium and thallium, you will find that it is basic in nature. Okay. Now, let us go to the carbon family, guys. We have reached here carbon family. Yes, the carbon family is right here, everyone. So when we reach carbon family, we notice that here atomic radii is carbon is lesser than silicon, then it is germanium, then it is tin, and then it is lead. However, ionization energy, that becomes ulta of it. You see that carbon, then silicon, then germanium, then lead, and then tin. So this right here, there is a slight bit of difference. Why? Because again, before lead, you must have noticed that f orbitals, f block elements, they have been introduced, and you know that f orbitals have a really bad shielding effect, which is why the ionization energy slightly increases. Okay, talking about electronegativity, carbon, of course, because of its small size, it will be highly electronegative, then lead, then silicon, and then germanium and tin. They have almost equivalent electronegativity like silicon. Okay. Oxidation state, these guys, they have general oxidation state of +2 and +4. Stability of +2 oxidation state will obviously increase down the grip, down the group once again because of inert pair effect. Okay. The metallic character here also, you will notice that the metallic character is increasing down the group. All right. Okay. Now, when we talk about melting point, we notice that it decreases up to 10 and then it increases again. Okay. Boiling point decreases down the group. Density increases down the group. So, carbon will have lesser density, but there is a catch. If you take carbon ka allotropic form diamond, then the density will be much more higher. Okay, then it does not just increase down the group, you will not find that. Then it will be silicon, germanium, then carbon, then it will be tin and lead. Got it? Okay, so that is a catch. If only if you take the carbon's allotropic form of diamond. If you take graphite, then yes, it will keep increasing down the group. That's not a problem. Okay. Reactivity with air, we know that it can react with air to form monooxide as well as dioxides, yet it can react with water. Only tin reacts with the steam. All the other elements, they do not react with water in any form. Okay. Now, when we talk about reactivity with halogens, we notice that these guys, they react with halogen, and what will they form? +2 and +4 oxidation state is the general oxidation state. So obviously they're going to form dihalides and tetrahalides. Okay. Next property is catenation, everyone. When we talk about catenation, you see that carbon is the only one who can show this property very, very well. Okay. Rest of the group does not really show it that amazingly. Carbon is the one that is known for its catenation, properties, isn't it? Then you have silicon, then you have germanium, and germanium and tin almost show similar, catenation properties. Lead cannot even show catenation at all. Okay. Then we come to bond enthalpy. So for a carbon bond, it is 348. For a silicon bond, it is 297. For gallium, it's 260. For tin, if you talk about, yes, if I'm going to write it down here. For a tin and tin bond, I think it is 240 kilojoule per mole. Okay, so you see that a carbon single bond, it is much higher. Yes, breaking the bond will be very difficult here. Okay. Next, guys, the central metal atom in these halides, okay, they undergo sp3 hybridization, and the molecule is usually in tetrahedral shape. However, again, exceptions are there, that is SnF4 and PbF4. These are ionic in nature. How do you talk about this ionic in nature? Guys, do you all remember Fayon's rule? What did Fayon say? Fayon said that if you have a small cation and a large anion, then what will happen? You will have covalent character that will increase, right? But the ulta of it will be what? LCSA. That is, if you have a large cation, but if you have a small anion, then will it be ionic in nature? Yes. So you see that tin and lead, they are what? A large cation, but fluorine is a chottu anion, right? So what will happen? Ionic character here will increase. Okay. And of course, PbI4 cannot exist at all because Pb and I bond initially formed during the reaction. It does not release enough energy to impair the 6s2 electrons and excite one of them to higher orbital to have 4 unpaired electron around the lead atom. You don't understand this? No problem. Try and understand it this way, Bacha. See, if you take Pb and if you take I4, right? Pb in I4 will be in +4 oxidation state, but you know that +2 oxidation state ka stability increases down the group. So this Pb would not like to be in its +4 oxidation state. It would want to convert to +2 oxidation state. So what is it doing? It is grabbing hold of 2 more electrons to get to +2 oxidation state. So reduction is happening. Yes, this is the reduction is happening. That means that this is an oxidizing agent. Is that correct? Absolutely. So this is an oxidizing agent, and I4, that means what you have done is you have taken I minus, isn't it? And this I minus will also have a tendency to get converted to I2. Right. So what will happen? You cannot have both oxidizing agent and the reducing agent at the same place. You cannot have that. Right. So I4, this is going to be what? It is going to be a reducing agent. This is what? This is an oxidizing agent. So if you have both oxidizing agent and reducing agent, they are not compatible with each other. And that is why this particular compound does not exist. Gotcha? Clear? Alright, so don't remember all of this line that is written. Just remember that one of them, Pb in +4 oxidation state is not stable. It would want to go to +2 oxidation state. So from +4 to +2, if it is going, that means what is happening? A reduction is happening because there is a reduction in the number of oxidation number. Yes, there is a reduction in the oxidation number. So that means if itself, if it is going through reduction, that means it is oxidizing someone else. So this is an oxidizing agent. And this guy, I4, yes, what is it going to do? From I minus, it would want to go to 0. That means here what is happening? Oxidation is happening. So it is going to be a reducing agent. So reducing agent, oxidizing agent, if you keep them together, they're not going to be compatible. Okay. All right. That is what you should remember. Chalo. Now guys, let us go to our nitrogen family, that is our nictogens. Okay. Let us go to the nitrogen family. Then the nitrogen family, who do you have in the nitrogen family? You have, sorry. In the nitrogen family, you know that their electronic configuration is exceptionally very stable, that is NS2-NP3. Extra stable electronic configuration is only because of the half-filled p orbital. Yes, if you talk about their atomic and ionic radii, you will notice that it increases down the group. Why? Because of the increase in the number of inertial. Okay, if we talk about the ionization enthalpy, then we notice that it decreases down the group. Why? Because there is an increase in the atomic size. Who all are there in the nitrogen family? Nitrogen, phosphorus, arsenic, antimony and bismuth. So how do you remember it? You can remember it is not possible against Sobai. Okay. Now on the top you have the non-metals. Yes. Antimony is a metalloid and bismuth is a metal. Alright everybody. Chalo guys. Moving ahead. Atomic number is given. Atomic mass, if you look at it, yes, that is increasing. Yes, that is increasing. Electronic configuration, you know. Now look at ionization enthalpy, guys. Ionization enthalpy from 1400 to it decreases to 112. Then it decreases further to 947. It decreases further to 834. It decreases further to 703. So no exception in the ionization enthalpy. It's just decreasing down the group. Okay. Next, electronegativity. For nitrogen, it is 70. For, no, electronegativity is here, guys. This is electronegativity. For nitrogen, it is 3.0. For phosphorus, it is 2.1. For arsenic, this is AS, okay? This is AS. For arsenic, it is 2.0. For SB, it is 1.9. For bismuth, it is 1.9, okay? Then we come to covalent radius. The covalent radius in picometer is 70. It increases 110, then 121, then 140. And then it is 148. Got it? Okay. Then we come to ionic radius. For ionic radius, you notice that 107. What in picometer? No, this must be this is density, this is boiling point, this is melting point. Ionic radius in picometer is 1713, guys. Okay, this is an exception because it looks like it is very very high. 1713 picometer is the ionic radius. I'm not very sure if it is correct or if it is wrong. This is a doubt. This is doubtful for me. Can you take a look at the NCRT ones for this? Okay, just for this. Can you please take a look at it? I'm a little doubtful. It could be. If it is 1713, that means that definitely it is an exception because it's very high. But if you take a look at phosphorus, 212, for arsenic, 222, for SB, it is 76, for bismuth, it is 103, right? So basically overall in this family, you don't really have much, exceptions. However, one thing that you have to remember is their stability is attributed towards their half-filled electronic configuration. Okay. Then we come to thermal stability. Thermal stability, you see that NH3 has a very high thermal stability, then PH3, then ASH3, then SBH3, and then BIH3. Why so? Because increase in the size of the element which results in weaker bonds. Okay. Then we talk about the reducing character. Reducing character increases down the group. Why? Because thermal stability decreases. That means easily BiH3 will be able to release hydrogen. Okay, boiling point, you see that it is pH3 first, then it is ASH3, then NH3 because of hydrogen bonding here. Yes, in case of NH3 you will find hydrogen bonding, that is why it is high. Then it is SBH3, then it is BiH3. Okay, now when we talk about basic character, we see that it is NH3, then PH3, then ASH3, then SBH3, and then BiH3. It increases in size of the central atom and thus reduction in its tendency is is a tendency to give the lone pair. Got it? All right. Next, we come to the oxygen family, guys. Who do you have? You have oxygen, sulfur, selenium, tellurium, and polonium. Here also not much of a difference. There are not much exceptions. Yes. Now, let us quickly go to the chemical properties. However, all the things, everything that you need to know, it is all here. Okay. Everything that you need to know, it's all here. So, have a look at this table. Don't skip it. Okay. Don't skip it. Now, oxidation state, we know that the stability of -2 oxidation state, it decreases. Why? Because as you go down the group, the atomic radius is getting bigger and bigger. And when the atomic radius is getting bigger and bigger, you know that the elements or the atoms will not be very open to the idea of taking more electrons, right? Yes, so that will decrease down the group because there is a decrease in electronegativity. The tendency or stability of +4 oxidation state in comparison to +6 oxidation state, obviously again +4 oxidation state stability will increase. Yes, and why will it increase? Because of inert pair effect, it will increase. Gotcha? Clear? All right. Now we talk about reactivity towards hydrogen. This is important, everyone. Yes. So the thermal stability for H2E, E for element. That means H2O, H2S, H2Se, H2Te, H2PeO. Okay. So thermal stability obviously decreases down the group. That means down the group, the bond length increases, and that means that the hydrogen and the element bond dissociation enthalpy also decreases. So very easily they will be able to release hydrogen. So reducing character, it increases down the group except for water. Down the group, why does it increase? Because thermal stability is decreasing. Okay. Boiling point, you notice that water has the highest boiling point in case of the whole group. Why? Because there is an increase in van der Waals forces, and H2O is an exception due to hydrogen bonding here. Okay. Acidic strength obviously increases down the group because the bond length here is what is happening is that the bond length increases and the bond strength decreases, which means that the release of H plus ions, it will be much easier, है ना? चलो जी, moving ahead. Let's come to group 17, that is our halogens. And who do we have? Fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, and astatine, right? So here you see that the covalent radii, of course, it is increasing down the group. The ionic radii also is increasing down the group. Ionization enthalpy obviously decreases down the group, as you all can see. The electron gain enthalpy, that is an exception. Chlorine has higher electron gain enthalpy than fluorine. Always remember this because from here you will get a lot of questions. Okay, this is very important. Electronegativity for fluorine is the highest, then it is of chlorine, then bromine, and then of course iodine. Okay, melting point, you will notice that melting point obviously increases down the group. Boiling point is also increasing down the group. Okay, all right. Yes, everybody. Chalo, theek hai. Moving ahead, let's come to the trends and exceptions of noble gases family. You see electronic configuration of helium, neon, argon, krypton, and xenon. For helium it is 1s2, for neon it is 2s2, 2p6, for argon it is 3s2, 3p6, krypton 3d10, 4s2, 4p6, xenon it is 4d10, 5s2, 5p6. Ionization enthalpy, of course, you will see that for helium it is the highest, and as you go down the group it only decreases. Okay. Atomic radius, of course, it will increase as you go down the group, right? And electron gain enthalpy for neon is the highest. This is something that you need to remember. In fact, electron gain enthalpy of argon and krypton, this is also an exception. They are very similar. So this may be asked in the exam. This may be asked in the exam. This is something that you need to remember. Okay. All right, moving ahead, atomic radii increases. They have no tendency to accept the electron, and therefore they have very large positive value of electron gain enthalpy. Do you notice that none of them have any negative sign attached to the electron gain enthalpy? That's because when you are pushing an electron, what will happen is that you will only have to give the energy as well, because they have no tendency whatsoever to accept an electron. They're very stable, right? Okay, guys. Now we will come to D block elements and their electronic configurations which are exceptional. Chromium has an exceptional electronic configuration of 4s1 3d5. Copper has 4s1 3d2. Niobium has 5s1 4d4. Molybdenum has 5s1 4d5. Technetium has 5s2 4d5. Ruthenium has 5s1 4d7. Yes. Rhodium has 5s1 4d8. Palladium has a 4d10. Silver Ag has 5s1 4d10. Lanthanum has 6s2 5d1. Platinum has 6s1, 4f14 and 5d9. Gold has 6s1, 4f14, 5d10. Actinium has 7s2, 6d1 and Rg has 7s1, 5f14, 6d10. Alright guys, yes, this is the these are all the ones that have an exceptional electronic configuration. Rest all the elements in the D block you will find them to have their usual electronic configuration that they're supposed to have. Okay. Now guys, when we come to melting and boiling point, you will notice that in any row of the melting point, these metals, they have the maximum, okay, maximum melting and boiling point when they have D5 electronic configuration. So if you look at chromium, if you look at molybdenum and if you look at tungsten, all of them have a D5 electronic configuration. Apart from that, chromium also has a 4s1 3d5. So that means there are 6 unpaired electrons. That means there are 6 unpaired electrons, and because there are 6 unpaired electrons, the 6 unpaired electrons can be given away to the sea of electrons that a metal lattice has. So it can bond with 6 electrons, and that bond is very, very high, which is why the melting and the boiling point increases so much. And this can be explained with enthalpy of atomization. What do you mean by enthalpy of atomization? That means when you want to form a single atom from the whole crystal lattice or from whatever bond they have in between, you want to dissociate that bond, break it apart, and you just want to have one single atom. To form that one single atom, what is the energy that is required? That, my dear student, is called as your enthalpy of atomization. So here you see, you have the series 1. Okay, this is your chromium, this is your molybdenum, and this is your tungsten. So like I said, right here, in case of chromium, in case of molybdenum, and in case of tungsten, you will see that enthalpy of atomization is also the highest. So because enthalpy of atomization is the highest, you also expect their melting and boiling point to be the highest. Okay. Okay, all right, guys. Now let us move on quickly towards their atomic radius of all the D block elements. And you know that atomic radius is actually dictated by two factors. One is the effective nuclear charge. One is the effective nuclear charge, which we call as Z effective, okay? And the second one is your screening effect or the shielding effect, okay? Second one is your screening effect or the shielding effect. So if Z effective increases, atomic radius decreases. If screening effect increases, atomic radius also increases. So of course, from 3D to 4D to 5D, if you come, atomic radius will increase only. Yes. If the number of d electrons increases, then what will happen? Sometimes you will have more electron-electron repulsion, which you get to see somewhere here. Okay. Somewhere here, if you come, right here, when you see that from copper to zinc, suddenly there is an increment. Why so? Because the number of d electrons are filled. It is completely filled. Zinc has a d10. That is why zinc is not considered a transition element. So because of more number of d electrons here, the electron-electron repulsion increases, which is why the atomic radius increases. Otherwise, when you see that the atomic radius is decreasing, that means what is happening? Z effective is increasing. From manganese to nickel, you notice, from manganese to nickel, you notice that there is not much difference in the atomic radius. Why so? Because the Z effective and the screening effect both are doing what? Both are what is the word? Compensating for each other, right? Both of them are compensating for each other. So Z effective increasing, screening effect will say that I will also increase. So Z effective increases, screening effect increases, Z effective increases, screening effect increases. They're like, okay, we will balance out each other. That's it. So there is not much of the increment. This is something that you should remember. This graph, this particular graph is something that should, that should be there in your mind. And every time they say that atomic radius of D block elements, this graph should come. Okay, guys. Moving ahead, trends in the stability of higher oxidation state, bachalo. So let us talk about it. You know that, look at this, okay? Look at this. Titanium can exist with fluorine or chlorine or bromine or iodine, but it can only exist till +4 oxidation state. Vanadium can go up to +5 oxidation state. Chromium can go up to +6 oxidation state. Manganese with halogen, it can only go up to +4 oxidation state. In case of simple halides, manganese does not go to its highest oxidation state, that is +7. Only with mixed halides, that is oxygen and fluorine, then it will go. Okay. All right. Iron only goes till +3 oxidation state. Cobalt also only goes till +3 oxidation state. And after cobalt, you will not find anybody going to their +3 or any other higher oxidation state. So nickel only goes to +2 oxidation state. Copper only goes to +2 oxidation state. Zinc also only goes to +2 oxidation state. Okay. In fact, copper though cannot even, copper, if it goes to +2 oxidation state, it can only be with fluorine or chlorine, never with bromine or iodine. Okay. Copper can also be in its +1 oxidation state with chlorine, bromine or iodine. Okay. All right. Chalo. Moving ahead. Look at this. As I told you. Yes. So if you have a Mn, oxygen and fluorine, then it can go. Manganese with oxygen can go to its highest oxidation state of +7. Chromium can go to +6 oxidation state. Vanadium can go to +5. Titanium can go to +4. Scandium can go to +3. Also, one more thing, till manganese, do you also notice that the highest oxidation state also corresponds to the group number? Scandium, group 3, titanium, group 4, group 5, group 6 and group 7. So group 7 +7 is the oxidation state. But after this, you cannot account for it anymore, okay? Because iron does not go to +6 oxidation state, or iron does not even show you +8 oxidation state. However, if you want to remember osmium, okay, osmium and rhenium can go to +8 oxidation state. So that is something that if you want, you can remember, okay? Last but not the least, everybody, this is the last slide of today's session, everyone. So let me tell you that oxidation number 2 and 4 does occur, particularly when they lead to a noble gas configuration. That is for cerium. Cerium can take +4 oxidation state. However, for lanthanoids, the most common oxidation state is +3. But sometimes cerium takes +4. Europium can take +2 oxidation state, and terbium can take +4 oxidation state. A completely filled F level is seen in ytterbium. Ytterbium can show you +2 oxidation state. Why? Because it has a F14, fully filled F orbital. Alright, so guys, this was all the exceptions from your inorganic chemistry. Apart from this, I doubt there is anything. Yes, so everybody, apart from this, if there is one thing that you need to notice or you need to understand on your own, is the D and F block elements. D and F block elements electronic configuration. This is something that you must take a look at from NCERT. Please do not forget it. Please, please, please do not forget it. This is very, very, very important, because there will be one question which will ask you about the electronic configuration of either neodymium, either cerium, samarium, gadolinium, ytterbium, europium, dysprosium. They can ask you about these ones. So please take a look at them also. With this note, everybody, I hope you have a lovely Sunday. Thank you so much. Tara, bye-bye. All the very best. Keep studying. Stay tuned to the channel, and please let your friends know as well that in this channel, we are going to take care of each and every exam that you want to prepare in English. Lots of love. Tara, bye-bye. I'll see you later, guys.